العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وعلى من تبع هداهم إلى يوم الدين. كتاب Al-Adab Al-Mufrad, and we are still in the chapter that is of generosity. And the chapter number, please, 136, and it is the second or the third hadith, is it? 280. Hadith 280. And we're going to listen to the reading of the hadith, and then we will inshallah elaborate. Follow.
Chapter 136, the contentment of the self. Athar 67. Abdullah bin Zubayr said, I have never seen two women more generous than Aisha and Asma. Their generosity was different. Aisha used to gather things, and after they had been collected together, she would share them out. Asma would not keep anything for the next day.
The chapter is to do with sakhawat al-nafs, the generosity. And we have discussed, if you remember, how the Prophet ﷺ had set the ultimate example of generosity, where he was about to start the prayer, and a Bedouin man, he asked him, just in that time before he said Allahu Akbar, and he just look at the time and look at what he had done. He pulled the Prophet ﷺ from his garment. He said, I want you to give me. And I'm afraid if I leave it after the prayer I might forget. So he stood up with him, fulfilled what he needed, and then he came to continue the prayer. So if this is the Prophet ﷺ, then definitely the wives of the Prophet of Allah will be the most direct persons who will be affected by such manners. And the sakhawat al-nafs is from the beautiful manners. Remember that the Imam al-Bukhari had started with the chapter Husnul Khuluq, good manners. And after that he started with some of those characteristics which establish Husnul Khuluq. And we said the definition of the khuluq is what is your nature is. That is the quick response when something happens without you thinking about it. That is the khuluq. And from that khuluq is the person to be sakhi. That is to give for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of those wives, Prophet ﷺ, is called Aisha. Her sister, of course, she'll be affected, not because she's the sister of Aisha, but because they come from the house of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu wa ardah. Here Abdullah ibn Zubayr is describing two women, Aisha and Asma. Who is Aisha to Abdullah ibn Zubayr? She is Abdullah ibn Zubayr. Who is Zubayr to Asma radiallahu anha? Her husband. And who is Abdullah ibn Zubayr to Asma? Her. Come on, guys. Again. Zubayr ibn Awam, he is the husband of Asma. So Abdullah ibn Zubayr, he is to Asma, her son. Come on, guys. It's really embarrassing if you don't know who is Abdullah ibn Zubayr to Asma. So Aisha radiallahu anha happens to be his one. If she's a sister of Asma, she's the maternal aunt. So he's describing two women. His maternal aunt, which is the wife of the Prophet Aisha, and Asma, who is the mother of his, and she's a sister of Aisha. Both of them are the daughters of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. This hadith, Imam al-Bukhari brings it under the chapter of generosity. So he says, I have never seen more generous than these two women. Aisha, his maternal aunt, and Asma, who's his mother. And you know who is older? Asma. She's older than Aisha. When he mentions Aisha, for a reason, even though she is not his mother, or she's not closer to him in relationship. Because Aisha, she is better. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, فَضْلُ عَائِشَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ, the virtues of the excellencies of Aisha over the rest of the women, including Asma, is like فَضْلُ الثَّرِيدِ عَلَى الطَّعَامِ, that the good food which is called tharid in comparison to the rest of the food. I mean, she's better. And she was the most faqihah of this ummah. She was most faqihah, most knowledgeable of the women, of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and that's including Fatima. And she was the most beloved person to the Prophet. That's why he started with her, even though that Asma is his mother. So he said, I've never seen more generous than these two women. As for Aisha, she used to gather what she got to and postpone whatever she's got to go and get something else in order to combine it. So Aisha, whatever she gets in her hand, she does not spend it until she gets what? Another, for example, sources of money to combine it in order to give it out in charity. Whereas Asma, as soon as she gets something, she spends it. She does not hold anything to the following day. It is not on, by the way. Yeah, because this is not on. Jazakallah. She does not hold anything for the following day. Asma radiallahu anha, she was not holding anything for the following day because she asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She said, Messenger of Allah, I got nothing in my wealth except for what Az-Zubayr, her husband, gives me. She hasn't got any sources of money. That means she's poor. Shall I give from that for the sake of Allah? He said to her, yes. So she's poor, and whatever her sources of money is from her husband, Prophet of Allah, he said, yes, you could give out from the money that your husband gives you. Also in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, Prophet of Allah, he said to Asma, Anfiqi wa la tuhsi. Spend and don't count. And spend for the sake of Allah, and don't count. فَيُحْسِي اللَّهُ عَلَيْكِ. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will count upon you His blessings. So if you're going to spend in the way of Allah and start counting how much you spend, then Allah will count on you how much He's going to give you from His mercy. وَلَا تُعِي فَيُعِي اللَّهُ عَلَيْكِ. And do not as well start gathering, and Allah Azza wa Jal will make it tight in your provision. Is something happening here? I don't know. Right. So here we find two sisters. One, she gathers what she can and then she spends, and the second one, which is Asma, she spends as soon as she gets. Which one is better and which one is more rewardable in the sight of Allah? We've got two different personalities and two different ways of approach to the spending of Allah. Prophet of Allah, he told Asma, don't count, for verily Allah will count upon you. And he told as well Asma as well, don't gather, for verily Allah Azza wa Jal will make it tight onto your provision. So if it is the case, then I need to know that the Prophet ﷺ, according to Anas radiallahu anhu, he used to not to save anything for the following day, and he used to spend it. So who is closer to the action of the Prophet of Allah, Asma or Aisha? Come on guys, Asma radiallahu anhu. But who is better in the sight of Allah, Asma or Aisha? Aisha radiallahu anha. So this tells me from this that even that we have a companion better than another companion in a certain thing, yet in totality, it doesn't mean that person is better than him. So, Asma is better than Aisha in that. Aisha, she used to gather and save because she thought whatever she can get is not going to be enough and pleasing to the poor person when she gives out. That's her understanding. So she wanted to make it more in order to, number one, to please the person she's going to give. Number two, it will be as well more possible to divide it to more than one poor person. So it is divisible, you could divide it, whereas if it's a little, you can't divide it. Like with the Prophet ﷺ, when Aisha, she had a woman, she came with her 2 daughters, and she had only what? 3 dates. So she gave that 3 dates to her. So, 1 date to the girl, little one, to the girl and the mother. The 2 girls, straight away, they eaten their dates and they were looking at the dates in the hand of the mother. So, the mother, she split that date, gave half to the other daughter, and the other half to the daughter. So actually she was astounded. So she told the Prophet ﷺ, Messenger of Allah, this is what happened. And this woman, I gave her 3 dates and all of them hungry. The mother is hungry, 2 girls. But 2 girls, after they had eaten, consumed their date, they were looking at the date in the hands of their mother, and their mother, she split it in her 2 halves and gave to each one half date. So Prophet of Allah, he said, are you amazed, Aisha, that she is merciful to her children? For verily Allah is more merciful than her to her children. So even she is merciful, yes, of course, the mother, and nobody can be matching the mother in terms of mercy and in terms of closeness to the person, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more merciful than her to his slaves than this mother to her children. So we understand that Aisha, she was generous, and Asma was generous, but the generosity of Asma, it exceeds the generosity of Aisha. But Aisha, she was doing that because she thought it would be what? Better for the poor if she gathers more and saves up rather than to spend it straight away. When Anas radiallahu anhu, he said, the Prophet ﷺ, he will never save anything to the following day. And I believe that Aisha, she does not aware of that the Prophet of Allah will not save for the following day. Because Anas used to be the servant of the Prophet of Allah. He sees the Prophet of Allah more on the day than Aisha she sees of the Prophet of Allah. Whereas Aisha, she sees of the Prophet of Allah during the nights, where the nights he does not give to the poor people, the Prophet of Allah. So in the day, he gives to the poor people, and that is why the Anas, he will be more knowledgeable of the actions of the Prophet of Allah during the day. Also Ali ibn Abi Talib is more knowledgeable with the confession of Aisha regarding the trouble circumstances of the Prophet of Allah, which was asked about the journeys and the traveling. She said, go and ask him. Ali is better than me because he travels more with the Prophet of Allah than Aisha herself. When he came to the night prayer, Abdullah ibn Abbas was asked, he said, nobody can know more than the house, and he pointed to the house of Aisha. So Aisha, she knows more of the night life of the Prophet of Allah, whereas the other companions who are close to the Prophet of Allah, like Abu Bakr, Anas, like as well Ali ibn Abi Talib, they will be more of aware to act the actions and close to the actions of the Prophet during the day. So this is sakhawa. Now we come into the opposite of that, Babu Shuh. Go ahead. Yes. You have to do that. Yes. Sorry about that. Chapter 137, isn't it?
Chapter 137.
No.
Avarice. Hadeeth 281. Abu Hurairah said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the dust of the path of Allah and the smoke of Jahannam are never joined together in the heart of a slave. Belief and avarice can never join together in the heart of a slave.
Right. Avarice, stinginess, it's called, or to be a miser. So stinginess and avarice, is that the way to say word? Yeah. But which one is worse in English? Niggardliness, stinginess, which one? There's niggard, there's stingy, there's miser, and there is avarice. Which one is worse?
It's the same.
It's the same. Okay, but in Arabic it's not the same. Let's just discuss it. A shuh is a word, and a bukhl There's another word. The difference between a shuh and a bukhl. Both are translated into avarice or stingy or miser. But the shuh is much or more being of a niggard, being more the stingy than the bakhil. So the shuh is, so it is in power wise, is more stingy. The shahih, shuh. Number two, the stingy, or the shahih, is not just stingy of what he's got in his possession to give out, but he's also eager to take what is in your possession. So this is worse. So he's not just stingy to give out from his pocket, but he's eager to have what is in your pocket. Third one, the shahih is not just stingy in the money, but also stingy in other than the money. Stingy in his advice. Stingy in his help. Stingy in everything regarding the help and the khayr. So stingy in all aspects of khayr. It's not just to do with the wealth. So the stingy, the shuh, or the avarice is more of, you could say, bad character than the bukhl. Right. Why did the Imam al-Bukhari brought such a chapter straight away in the, we call it after the sakhawat al-nafs, after being generous? Why did he bring that? To warn against such a thing. So he is saying, basically, that you should not be shahih. Just like you are being a person who is generous, you should avoid to have the avarice or to be stingy or niggard or anything like this. So he started this hadith, لا يجتمع الغبار في سبيل الله ودخان جهنم. Al-Ghubar, the dust, in the sake of Allah means the jihad. That's what it means. The dust. And also, the smoke of the fire. Meaning that the person who makes jihad and his nostrils are full of dust, that dust will block the entrance of what? The smoke of the fire. Meaning that the person who's mujahid, he will not be in the hellfire. But that if it is in the sake of Allah. Because he said, لا يجتمع غبار في سبيل الله. It has to be in the sake of Allah. You know for a fact that the Prophet ﷺ, he said in a hadith of Abu Hurairah that the first three who will be set ablaze in the fire, one of them who is mujahid. But he did not make the jihad for the sake of Allah. He made the jihad because he wants the people to call him courageous or hero. And it was said. Because of that, he will be the first person to be set ablaze in the hellfire. This person is not the one whom the Prophet was talking about this in this hadith. That is the dust of, which is the dust of the sake of Allah. Dust meaning the jihad, the dust of the hooves of the animals when they make the jihad, or the cars or whatever. In the sake of Allah, it will not be in the same nostril where the hellfire smoke. So if you are making proper jihad, the jihad will save you from the hellfire. Your sins will be saved. If you're a martyr, it will be your sins will be forgiven from the first drop of blood. And then he said, وَلَا يَجْتَمِعُ الشُّحُّ وَالْإِيمَانِ فِي قَلْبِ عَبْدٍ أَبَدًا. And verily the shuh, which we took avarice, translated that, and the iman in one heart of a person. A shuh is one of the bad characteristics that the person should avoid. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, شَرُّ مَا فِي الرَّجُلِ شُحٌّ هَالِعٌ وَجُبْنٌ خَالِعٌ. The most wicked and evil characteristics that the person can hold in the sight of Allah is to be acting in sheer niggardliness and in sheer cowardice. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ خُلِقَ هَلُوعًا إِذَا مَسَّهُ الشَّرُّ جَزُوعًا وَإِذَا مَسَّهُ الْخَيْرُ مَنُوعًا. Verily, as in Surah Al-Ma'arij, Allah said, man is created halua'. What is the meaning of halua'? Means if he's touched by fear, إِذَا مَسَّهُ الشَّرُّ, by evil, he will act in cowardice, he will be scared. He will be in despair of the mercy of Allah. He's a coward. And if he's touched by the good, that means abundance came to him, wealth came to him, he will act in sheer niggardliness. He will prevent that good to reach other people. These two qualities are from the worst in the sight of Allah. And those two characteristics that the person holds is beside other bad characteristics. If they combine with each other in the person, this person is not fit to fulfill the verse of Allah, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُمْ بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. Verily Allah had purchased from the believers their souls and their properties, that their destiny, their abode is paradise. So if you want paradise, you may not be with these characteristics. One of them is stinginess, sheer niggardliness, and sheer cowardice. So I need to filterize and purify myself. One of the ways to purify yourself is to strive against it. One of the ways is the prayer. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that surah He said, all of those are halur except illa al-musalleen, the ones who pray. But not any type of prayer. The prayer that has two descriptions or two conditions. الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَاتِهِمْ دَائِمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ, then afterwards, he says in the verses later on, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَاتِهِمْ يُحَافِظُونَ. دَائِمُون, they are dawam. And dawam means settled. It means good istiqrar. This is dawam. And also dawam means consistent. Both are in the prayer. Dawam, istiqrar, tranquility, that when the person prays, he prays with tranquility and with ease. He does not go fast like the pecking crow. For verily, tranquility, tuma'nina, in the ruku', in the sujood, between the two sajda, sami Allahu liman hamida. All of those are to be pillars in the prayer. If you violate your tranquility, your settlement, your ease, then you have jeopardized your prayer. As for the second meaning of the dawam, which is the persistent, that means you pray 5 daily prayers. Also in the other description of the people who pray, the ones who observe their prayer. Observe their prayer, it means those 5 things. Number 1 is that you pray on time. So praying on time is from the word yuhafidun, to observe your prayer. So he's praying on time. That means the beginning of its time. Number 2, he has tranquility. Again, the tranquility comes out in the second one, which is praying as the Prophet ﷺ is praying. Number 3, that is to as well have submissiveness, khushu'. For verily, khushu' is not a pillar, but what is the point of a person praying and all his mind is away from the prayer? So you have to have that khushu'. All of that to get rid of this stinginess and cowardice. So, khushu'. And also to pray with the wudu perfected, either wudu as the wudu of the Prophet ﷺ. Number 5 is to pray the jama'ah. For verily, if you have a masjid within the catchment area of yours, you may not pray at home your obligatory, you have to pray your jama'ah in the masjid. So if you live next to the masjid, you have to pray the jama'ah in the masjid. You have no excuse, except if you have a legitimate excuse. So just because of your because you can't hear the adhan is next to you in the masjid, you have to pray in the masjid. For verily, you'll be sin for praying at home. So those 5 qualities, plus the dawam, all of those makes it the person who is exempted from those whom Allah Azza wa Jalla had condemned. Those are the ones halur. So this is the way to purify yourself from this stingy. And now here, the Prophet ﷺ had combined between these two. There is no dust in the sake of Allah get together with the smoke of the hellfire. There's one will block the other. And also, he said, the shuh, stinginess, does not get together in the heart of a believer with the what? With the iman. So it means this shuh, which is, we said, not just niggardly and stingy in the money, it is stingy as well in the khayr, in giving the advice, in praying to Allah. So if the stinginess is to do with not the root of iman, then to do with, for example, the compulsory act, but not the foundation of the iman, then this person is stingy, then he will not have a perfect iman, because the iman goes up and down. But if the stinginess is in the root of the matter, You are stingy even to give your prayers. You are stingy to go to give all the ta'ah that Allah had given you. And you only present the evil acts, and you are actually shattering that foundation of iman, and you have no iman. So, لا يجتمع شح وإيمان كامل. That's what it means. That is the shuh, which is the Prophet is talking about here, that will not combine with perfect iman. If you have perfect iman, you'll have no shuh. But if you have shuh in the roots of the Islam, then you'll have not a single drop, or a single atom, and a single habbatu khardal mustard seed from iman. So this is how important it is. So the Prophet ﷺ is telling us, this bukhl, shuh, opposes the iman. The more shuh you have, the less iman you're going to get. The less shuh you have, the more iman you're going to have. So in this hadith, we find ourselves to explain this hadith, as we explain other hadiths when the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه من الخير. No one will gain the belief, that is, the full belief, until he loves his brother what he loves to himself from the good. So he had that complete belief. It's not the belief which is the root of the belief. So if somebody does not love his brother, or does not love for his brother the good, does it make him a kafir? No. It makes him less iman. Look at lots of people from the brothers envy other people. And the envy means you don't love good to your brother. The envy means you don't love good to your brother. Does it make him a kafir? No. So all of these ahadith, لا يؤمن أحدكم لا يجتمع شح وإيمان, all of this ahadith talks about, you have to explain it in the right way. So shuh here, it is not goes with a complete iman. You have complete iman, you have no shuh. But it is a shuh is in the root of the matter, the root of the foundation of Islam, then you'll have no mustard seed of iman. Allah Ta'ala a'lam. Now, we have in this hadith the excellence of jihad, and excellence of going out for the jihad, and also the excellence of being a person who is generous, and the forbiddance of the stinginess, and also to scare the person from the drop of iman, because it says the shuh and the iman, they will not get together on harm. That means to scare you off, it's a deterrence from, or the fear, or to warn you from the decrease in the iman. Also, it tells us that the iman has the effect on the person's action. The more iman he gets, the better his action will be. The less evil he will do. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. 282 is to be unauthentic, so we go to 283.
Athar 68. Abdullah bin Rabi'ah said, we were sitting with Abdullah, and people spoke of a man and of certain of his characteristics. Abdullah said, what do you suppose? If you cut off his head, you would be able to put it
Can I
back?
just ask you from the beginning already, please?
Sorry?
Just read from the beginning, please. Abdullah ibn Rabi'ah.
Abdullah bin Rabi'ah said, we were sitting with Abdullah, and people spoke of a man and of certain of his characteristics.
Of what? Certain of his characteristics?
Yes, certain characteristics.
Okay, I'll explain that. Fine. Yes.
Abdullah said, what do you suppose if you cut off his head, you would be able to put it back on again? They said, no. He said, and his hand? They said, no. He said, and his foot? They said, no. He said, you cannot change his character until you change his physical form. The drop of semen remains in the womb for 40 nights, and then the blood congeals, and then it becomes a blood clot, and then a lump of flesh, and then Allah sends an angel who writes down his provision, his character, and whether he will be fortunate or wretched.
Right. Again, this hadith is under the stinginess. And if you have listened to the hadith, the way he translated it, is there any link between that and the stinginess? I'm asking you, what do you like to tell me? Okay, it's actually in the beginning of the hadith. This is an athar from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. It's not a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, whom the Prophet ﷺ, he said, if he talks to you, the son of Abdullah, the son of the mother of Abdullah, then believe him. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is a great scholar. He was Habr. He's one of the 4 reciters whom the Prophet ﷺ asked us to take the Quran from. 4 reciters. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. And as soon as Umar al-Khattab sees him, he says, this is the one who's got the knowledge. He's like an encyclopedia, basically saying. He's an encyclopedia. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. So, if you want to fight the innovators and the innovations, the best companion for you to take his wordings against the innovators, who? Allah ibn Mas'ud. There is no room or market for innovations in the presence of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. They have mentioned a man. This is where they mention a man, his character. They mention his stinginess. It has to be the link between this and the chapter. Because it's mentioned him, that is, maybe in a way which is not good, which is mentioning him in the way that he is stingy, his character is stingy. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is telling them, if you had to cut this person's head, would you be able to return it back? And they said, no. What about his hand? I mean, if you cut off his hand, would you be able to return it back? He said, no. So you can't really change his manners, just like you're not able to change his creation. Just like you're not able to bring his hand back, you're not able to change what? His character. Now what does that mean? Does that mean that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is telling us not to enjoin good and forbid evil? No, it doesn't mean that. It means, as the Prophet ﷺ had said in the Hadeeth, إِنَّ اللَّهَ قَسَمَ بَيْنَكُمْ أَخْلَاقَكُمْ كَمَا قَسَمَ بَيْنَكُمْ أَرْزَقَكُمْ. Allah had given you the share of, or the portions of your manners, just like He had as well set, already destined, your provision. So your provision is destined, same thing is what? Your manners is destined. So, just like your provision, no matter what you do, you're going to get what Allah has prescribed for you. Same thing, your manners is going to be what Allah has prescribed for you as well. But it doesn't mean that we sit and we don't do anything. Abdullah Mas'ud, he knows that qadar that has been said, it does not call the person to sit and do nothing. But he's saying that to the companion or to the people who are talking about this person, that, this is the man, this is who he is. Allah made him that way. But it doesn't mean that Allah has said to him, no, don't really go and enjoy good and forbid evil. But you're talking about his character, it's better off to go and what? Tell him that this is the way that he should be, this is the way that he should be. And verily the person, he gets his manners from 2 ways, which is inheritance that he gets, and from adaptation. The inheritance, Allah has given him that. So a person is born tempered, a person born easy going, a person born harsh. Okay? And his environment as well gets the adaptation. So that is another source. And the adaptation factor is actually in power more than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had chipped in you already when you are born. Because the adaptation, you could be, for example, chipped with hot temper. You go in an environment, mashallah, calm people, you are calm. And you could be born as a calm person, but if you put into people who are screaming all the time, you start what? Screaming with them because of adaptation. So, the 2 sources that goes into your manner, those 2 sources, if you are hot-tempered, you have to work onto yourself and strive against yourself, okay, to make yourself not hot-tempered. And if you are a person who is, mashallah, easygoing, you have to strive against everything that makes you the other, or the opposite of that. So here, he's saying to them, Abdullah Mas'ud, that this is part of his creation. But he's not telling them that not to enjoy good or forbid evil. Also he's saying that the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is being set already. And the companions came to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Messenger of Allah, is everything being said set? He said, yes. So he said, what should we work? It is being set. I mean, let me just sit down, because my destiny has been written as a destiny. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "I'malu, do, you have to act, you have to. فَكُلٌّ مُيَسَّرٌ لِمَا خُلِقَ لَهُ." Each person, he will be facilitated to what is being created for. Because the qadr of Allah Azza wa Jal is a secret. It's already destined for you, whether you're going to go to paradise or to hellfire. You're already being destined. But this pre-recording of Allah, this pre-destiny of Allah, does not affect your will to choose. to be a disbeliever or to be a believer. فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. So nobody can say that, no, I'm not going to do anything because I'm being compelled to do what I'm doing. If it is the case, then there is no life. And I give an example, which is a simple example to my student. If somebody is breaking into your car, or you could be breaking into somebody's car if you want, and that person comes in, what are you doing? Well, I'm destined to break into your car, brother. You can't really touch me. I can't help it, brother. I've been destined to break into your car. So there's no police, there's nothing crimes, there's no prisons. Because why shouldn't be in prison? Because I'm already been destined to steal into your car, brother. So there's no such thing. Life will not go on. So that is simple mind will reject such concept or such an ideology. It's not really acceptable. So we say that the record has been set, but it's not that it's not affecting your will. Allah created you and He knows what you're going to do, but His knowledge is not affecting your choice. Your choice. I'm choosing now to raise up the paper. Look, I'm raising up the paper. But it's already written in the record that I am going to be what? Saying I'm going to raise up the paper and I'm going to lift up the paper. But Allah could pull the plug before I reach the paper. And the will is gone and drawn up. So you've got two things, the will and the intention. So you've got the intention and the will, the power to do it. I had the intention to raise up the paper and I had the will, then this power to lift it. Allah could take that will and that power off, and you'll not be able to fulfill what you have intended to do. So, you have the choice, but no matter what you choose, Allah knows. And it's being said. The same thing with your manners. No matter what you do, no matter what you're going to gain, it's being set already. But that does not make you to sit down and not to gain good manners. You have to strive to do the good manners. Then he says, in order to emphasize the destiny of Allah, he says, Verily inna nutfa, the semen drop, this is the semen itself. أَتَسْتَقِرُّ فِي الرَّحِمِ 40 لَيْلًا. It clings to the womb for 40 nights. Then it will go congeal blood. And then it will become a leech, a alaqa. And it will become a morsel which is chewed, part of it, and part of it is not chewed. And Allah Azza wa Jal would send an angel on that 42nd night. And it will write his provision and also his manners, and whether he is going to be destined to the hellfire, shaqi, or destined to paradise, sa'id. All of that will be in that scroll. And the angel will roll it back, and then that's it. Your destiny will be set. No matter what you do, this is your provision. No matter what you do, this is your destiny, paradise or hellfire, and also this is your manners. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, basically, he's not saying that you should not enjoy good, forbid evil, but he's saying that this is the destiny is being set, and we have to believe that the qadar is one of the secrets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and nobody will be able to understand the qadar of Allah azza wa jal. So if it is the case, we just work and act, and every person is being facilitated to what is being created to. Right, now this, as I said, had this hadith been mentioned under the chapter of stinginess because of the link of the first paragraph of the hadith where they said something wrong about that person. They said something, they mentioned the character of that person, and it looks like, Wallahu ta'ala a'lam, that he mentioned his stinginess. This hadith, as in Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, he says in Al-Fath, that it is encouraging the person to be satisfied. That is, to be, satisfaction is a treasure. So to satisfy, and also tells you off from being eager to go and accumulate, because the rizq is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what you've been asked is to earn what is enough. So the earning, and you yourself getting up to earn, that is required from you. But at the same time, it's required from you to be having satisfaction. Right, so this is, we say as well, a proof that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just like He's the creator of good, He's the creator of what? Evil. Just like He's the creator of good manners, He's the creator of what? Bad manners. He's the creator. And His creation of the evil is not evil. The creation of evil is not evil. Do you understand what I'm saying? Allah, when He creates the evil, His act creation itself is not evil. Not Him as well is evil. Because He creates the evil for a wisdom. And He does not create pure evil. You know something pure evil? Evil from all direction. So, we say whatever is evil for you, it could be good fortune for others. Yes? So, for example, the person who is making, for example, boxes for those people who die, the carpenter. So when he said, "Oh Allah, rizq," means, "Oh Allah, make people to die." Death, which is no good for you, is a good source of living because you're making a lot of boxes. So if there's war there, you'll be happy because more boxes. True or not? So whatever you consider is evil for you is good fortune for him. So on and so forth. As I said, Allah does not create pure evil. Right. Going to the following hadith. New chapter, yes.
Chapter 138. Good character when they have understanding of the deen. Hadith 284. Abu Hurairah said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, through good character, a man attains the same station as someone who stands at night in prayer.
Right. Again, Imam al-Bukhari, he brings Husn al-Khuluq. You remember Husn al-Khuluq, just 2 chapters before? Good manners. Now, it's again good manners with what? With fiqh. What does fiqh mean? Understanding. Understanding what? In physics and maths? In religion. Now, the fiqh is in 2 divisions. Fiqh akbar and fiqh asghar. A major fiqh, big fiqh, which is to do with your aqidah, to do with your iman, and the fiqh asghar, which is to do other than those which are to do with the aqidah and the iman, which includes ahkam like the salah and the zakat and all of that. Those, all of them required. So, this is why the Imam al-Bukhari is saying to us that husn al-khuluq is good, but requires as well to be as well with another good, which is what? Understanding of religion. And here he brings the hadith, which is even a hadith that is, it looks like there's no name to it, to the chapter title. He says, Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, he said, verily the man will attain the same rank with his good manner, the rank of a person who is what? Making qiyam. Here, qiyam, al-qaim bil-layl, is not just the prayer. Prayer, station of the Quran, dua, all of that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's messenger is saying that this person, with his good manners, which is good, he may attain the same level and the same excellence of a person who is in the night doing his qiyam. So what is the link with the knowledge? The link is that, first of all, the scholars, they said, in order for this person to get the good manners, he has to strive, make jihad. Jihad for himself, to control himself, especially when he faces those people who brings you hot temper. Those people who are, a'udhu billah, drive you mad. But you strive hard against yourself in order to what? Control yourself. To be as good as possible with them. So this is called striving and jihad. The same thing, this person who is making the night prayer, making the dua prayer, and making the supplication during the night, and making the recitation of the Quran, he's striving as well against his whims and desire, against his love to the sleep, against his love to relaxation. So he's striving against himself in order to stay what? Up in the night, quoting Allah. It's equivalent. So that person, he's got that through this. How is he going to strive against all of those people who are bringing him this circumstance to be a bad man? How? Because of the knowledge. If he knew, with the knowledge, that with my good manners, I'm going to reach the level of a person who is making this night qiyam, which I am not able to do. It could be easier for you to be good mannered because you have already been embedded by Allah, chipped already, created with the good manners. So we'll have good manners, and with this knowledge, with the intention of seeking Allah's reward and mercy, I will be able to reach the level of a person who's mashallah abid, person who is doing all night qiyam. So this is already, I would say, for a person who's got the manners, it will be easier for him as well than making the night prayer, because he has already got lots of those manners, but he has to control himself in those moments. For example, when somebody swears at him, or when he gets so tired. And you know when he's so tired, you come to the house, you don't want anybody to say a single word. You want your moment of relaxation. Any child said something or shouted, you scream at it. Some people even, alhamdulillah, would punish the child. Because you want, in that circumstance, just to relax. Nobody talk. Please, wife, stop. No talking. So you come in that sort of moment where you are vulnerable to go immoral. To go immoral. You control yourself. Alhamdulillah, you are reaching the level of a person who stays up during the night. That's the fiqh. So, good manners is good. But also, the fiqh and the religion is even better. Because I will now link my good manners to the reward of Allah. Because I know I'm striving to be just like that person who is gaining more reward with his qiyam. I'm gaining more reward with looking after myself with my manners. That's the link between these two. So this hadith, as I said, subhanallah, is telling us the importance of the good manners and the importance as well of the knowledge. And as the knowledge is of different levels. Knowledge which is to do with your creed and aqeedah, and you must do it. And also the knowledge which is regarding your ahkam and the prayer and so on, you must know. And there are, for example, knowledge which is not a must upon you, but it's good to know them. For example, the reward of doing such and such act. That is not compulsory, but it will be letting you to do and strive harder in order to gain more reward. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. What time is it about?
10 minutes.
10. Because when you came, I was... Okay, inshallah. Right. 285.
Hadith 285. Abu Hurairah said, I heard Abu Qasim, the Prophet ﷺ say, the best of you in Islam is the best of you in character when they possess understanding of the deen.
Right. This hadith, the best of you in Islam is the best of you in character if they understand, they have the understanding. Of course, this hadith is linked directly to the chapter title, which it says, the good manners if they understand. So this hadith is linked directly, and we don't have to really exert a lot of effort to know the link between the hadith and the chapter title. But here the Imam al-Bukhari also brings this hadith for other issues. Just like here he says, خَيْرُكُمْ إِسْلَامًا أَحَاسِنُكُمْ أَخْلَاقًا. The best of you in Islam is the best of you in manners. I'm asking, are the manners of the people the same? So the iman of the people and the hearts of the people, is it the same? So it's a big proof to say iman goes up and down. Big proof. Because there's most people who believe that the iman is one lump, does not divide. That hadith is against it. Because we know that the manners differ from one person to another. The same thing, the Islam of one person differs from one another in terms of strength, which is the iman in the heart. So the more you are mannered, and the more you are knowledgeable, the more iman in your heart. The less manners you have, the less knowledge you have, then the less iman you have. That's a relationship which can be seen easily from this. So, we find that the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Qasim, this is the kunya of the Messenger of Allah, is saying to us that the akhlaq is related to your iman and also is related to your knowledge. If you have more knowledge, you're bound to have more manners, and if you have more manners, this should you drive you to have more knowledge, and you will have more iman, and we go to 110. 286. 286.
286, Athar 69. Thabit bin Ubayd said, I have not seen anyone more grave when he sits with the people, nor more jocular in his house than Zayd bin Thabit.
Thabit ibn Ubayd, he says about Zayd ibn Thabit. One of the followers talks about a companion. Zayd ibn Thabit is well known to be the person who had been set to be the head of the committee to gather the Quran in the time of Abu Bakr and in the time of Uthman, may Allah be pleased with all of them. Zayd ibn Thabit is a well-known reciter, hafiz, a scribe, he writes, and also, as I said, he's a hafiz of the Quran, and Zayd ibn Thabit is one of the great companions. Here, Thabit ibn Ubayd describes the manners of Zayd. He said, I have never seen, in the eyes of mine, a man who is greater in terms of honor, in terms of everything, than Zayd ibn Thabit. Maybe because he did not see other companions. But Zayd ibn Thabit also describes that when he sits with the people, that the people will straight away behave and respect the person, his nobility and others. وَلَا أَفْكَهَ فِي بَيْتِهِ. And also he is more of a person who's cuddling, to jest when he comes to his house. That means within his family. As I said, the person who comes during the night after a long day of work, he might lose, his temper with his family. And also, unfortunately, we find people who look so cuddly and nice and like cats with the people and their friends, but when they go to their houses, they are monsters. And it was told to us a story by one of the shuyukh regarding a person who was known amongst his people to be very good in his manners. So good, nice. And then after a while, they decided to go for a picnic and take their families with each other. So each person brought his family. So that well-known person with his manners took his family as well along. And then the other wives of the other people, they started talking to the wife of this very good-mannered person. MashaAllah, congratulations, you're a very good person, very good husband. She said, so and so, the son of so and so. He's asking, is he talking about the same man? So and so, the son of so and so. Is he the one that he's talking about that he's good-mannered? She couldn't believe, because as I said, schizophrenia, two different personalities, outside and inside. Cat outside, a monster inside. What if you want to be a monster, be outside a monster, and be a cat inside? Because you are good to your family, good to your kids. So the person who is after a long day of work, and he comes to the house, and he grabs his child and kisses, and if he's chucked, he will be happy. That is, mashallah, is the one who will say, he is a shadeed. ليس الشديد بالصوع, not the one who's a wrestling match sort of champion, he is the one strong. The strong is the one who controls himself in the times of anger. That's the strongest person. And I'm saying this is an advice for you, or for myself, or for everybody. It is to control yourself in times of anger. Hold. And this is one of the good manners. He was joking with his people, jesting with people. SubhanAllah. Radiyallahu anhu wa arda. And I think 2 minutes. Right, 2 minutes. I will postpone the question after the prayer. Shall we do that? And next time, which is in 2 weeks' time, the class will start at 8 o'clock, inshallah. So 8 o'clock, by the time the prayer of the Maghrib will be about 8:45, maybe 8:40 or something like this. So we've got about 40 minutes to start the class, and then after that, after the Maghrib, we'll finish up the class and the question before the Isha. So 8 o'clock, is that okay? Suitable for everybody, inshallah? Okay, inshallah. Right. I'll give straight away after the class. Sorry, did you do the adhan straight away, the Isha, or the wait? Okay, 9:40 the Jama'ah, and then into the adhan, inshallah, we'll continue after the prayer. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وعلى من تبع هداهم إلى يوم الدين. As we have discussed in the book, which is Al-Adab Al-Mufrad, the chapter that is to do with the manners, and we remind ourselves that we are Muslims who resemble our Islam not just by the words or by naming ourselves Abdullah and Fatima, but also we resemble our religion by our actions. And the manners can be seen in all your aspects of your life, in the way you come to the masjid and the way you come out of the masjid. For verily the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had certain sets of etiquettes that has to be followed. And I have noticed, not in this masjid, in so many masajid, that there is a phenomena, something is taking place these days, and people not paying attention to, which is raising up the voices and the sounds in the masjid. For verily the masjid is not a market. The market is the worst place in the sight of Allah, whereas the masjid is to be the best place in the sight of Allah. And the Prophet ﷺ told us, إِيَّاكُمْ وَهَيْشَاتِ الْأَسْوَاقِ إِيَّاكُمْ وَهَيْشَاتِ الْأَسْوَاقِ. Never mind. That is, be aware of those places, or you turn your masjid into a market, where people will raise up their voices, and then they will annoy or disturb a person who is calling to Allah, or a person who is praying. So let's just now make sure that we are adhering to that. We don't have Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu to discipline us. For verily, if Umar al-Khattab was here, any person was raising up his voice, like at the moment we see, he would say to him, okay, you want to taste something of my stick, of my dirra? But we don't have Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. We do have consciousness and taqwa in our heart, should discipline us, inshallah, because we are calling ourselves Muslims. So the house of Allah is to be the house of Allah. So when the person comes into the masjid and he departs of the masjid, he departs and comes in the most quietest way. For verily, even Allah's Messenger had called the recitation of the Quran in a way which is disturbing to the others, is to be harmed. وَلَا تُؤْذُوا الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Also after the prayer, we know for a fact that we have adhkar. Some of us may recite those adhkar in a loud voice. Some of them even they would synchronize with another person next to him and make a jama'ah. All of that is not from the sunnah. For verily the Prophet ﷺ, if he wants to raise up his voice, will be occasionally, and will not be harming the person who is next to him. So if the person turns his back to the people and starts just the imam, and the person who is behind him turns now to start his adhkar, he should do his adhkar in the way that will not disturb the one who is next to him. Because verily, that person, if he had heard this person shouting his adhkar, he has no choice other not to say the adhkar of his, or to say it along with him, because he can't say his own. So be careful, that is, you need to adhere to the instruction of the Prophet. This is part of the manners. And as I said, I promise, inshallah, after the prayer, if you have any questions, please go ahead. And if you don't have a question, then we will call this, inshallah. If there are any questions, people you finger up. As for the sisters, if they are listening, please pass your questions through the door. So, anybody would like to start the questions in? Shall I ask a question? No.
You were talking about earlier about the catchment area. If you can hear the adhan, you should go to the masjid. What's the best way to estimate it?
The catchment area of the person, that is of the masjid, is he within the catchment area, that is he must pray the jama'ah? If we had the Islamic State, or at least the masjid can be calling the jama'ah, the adhan, outside without the help of the speakers, imagine that somebody can stand on top of the roof of this masjid and start, saying the adhan with the loudest voice that he can. The voice of his, when it travels, any person can hear it, where he's outside his double-glazed house. Because if he's inside his double-glazed, doesn't matter how strong is that voice, he will not be able to hear it. If he's outside his house, he can hear that voice, then he's within the catchment area of the masjid. So we could really estimate that, if you think of, in terms of meters-wise, I don't know if you know the meters, I know. So I would say that the sound will not travel beyond, I would say, even 0.1 of a mile. It will not travel beyond that. So if you imagine that houses now, in terms of houses, you could say about 20 houses this way, 20 houses that way, so 20 houses around the masjid. I'm talking about houses, decent houses, but not very small ones. So if it is the case, then you are within the catchment area. You must pray your 5 daily prayers in the masjid if you are next to the masjid. Now, follow.
And when do you consider traveling? How many miles you have to be away from your house? That's one question. The second one.
No, by one day, one day. Question of the brother regarding the traveling is how many miles is the traveling? He considered to be a traveler. You're asking question about one of the most controversial issues among the scholars. First of all, the ones who say in terms of miles and defines it is wrong. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He revealed the book and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was given to people who are ummiyya, illiterate. We don't know the hisab, the calculation. You're going to tell a person it's going to be, for example, 81 kilometers. About roughly 50 miles. So he has to learn what is kilometers, what is miles, and he has to carry with him as a machine to know if he's going to cross that distance or not. And plus, so if he's, for example, on that edge, on the border or the line where it is 50 miles, so it's 1 meter above that will be a traveler, and 1 meter behind this will not be a traveler. That's not the case. And also now with the Google map, you could make your distance 50 miles or less or more, depending upon the route that you take. True or not? So you could make the 20 miles 50 miles, if you wish. And you could make the 100 miles 70 miles, depending upon the route that you take. So what is the right way of considering the traveling distance? The traveling distance is what the people who are in that area consider to be traveling. So it changes according to the time and according to the place. Meaning, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the cities, they were very small. And traveling 3 miles, it takes a lot of time. When we now, it takes 1 minute maybe in a car to go across 3 miles. At the time of the Prophet, for example, from Mecca to Mina is a traveling distance. Now Mina is part of Mecca these days. You will never be considered as a traveler if you are in Mina or in Arafah or Muzdalifah, nowhere. At the time of the Prophet, this is outside. And I'll tell you what, the Haram, it looks like to you so close from the Kaaba to that is Safa wal Marwa. At the time of the Prophet of Allah, it was not that close. It was outside the Haram. It was outside the Haram, this Safa wal Marwa, because you need a bit of hill, and the hills were there, Safa and Marwa. Now there is no hills, there's no up and down, they just made it up. They put it like this. But it actually looks like flat, isn't it? And even the running, you don't run like before, running down and up and accelerating. It's like running in a flat area. Okay? So it's different. So I would say, what the people consider to be traveling is traveling. So you yourself, for example, that you are within London, you could travel as far as maybe 15 miles, it's still in London, true or not? Huh? And you'll never be able to say to yourself that you are a traveler. Or no one would say to you, for example, if you go, let's say you're going to Shepherd Bush, I'm traveling to Shepherd Bush. Nobody would say that. So I'm going to Shepherd Bush. So I would say, if we think of that, the UK is in terms of boroughs, not boroughs, I would say the districts. What do you call it? Counties. That's a better word. Counties. So maybe it will be better. So in county-wise, so if I'm traveling from London to Berkshire to Buckinghamshire, so I'm traveling. That's traveling. Plus, the traveling person would do something extra than he is going. So if he's going, for example, let's say to the 24 hours superstores like Asda or Tesco, that takes him away, about 2, 3, 4, 5 months. When he leaves his house, he will never say to his wife, look after the children because I'm going to Tesco. In case of emergency, this is the phone number. True or not? But when you go to a travel, like let's say you go to Oxford or to Birmingham, definitely you're going to do something extra. You will, at least, first of all, you will tell your wife, I'm not sure I'm going to come back at that time. That's the first thing. Second thing, you would say to her, oh, I don't know, if I lose signal, I will call you on that number. For example, if it might come, don't worry about me. Okay? So, because you're going far away. So that's about 40, 50 miles, 30 miles. So the people will do something extra. And this is the way to determine whether the person is in trouble or not. Now, there's no harm if two people went to the same place, one considers himself to be in trouble, and the other one does not do so. Because this person, he differs from the other person. So that person who considers himself a troubler should never blame or say anything wrong to the person who is not considering himself a troubler, and not the one who is considering himself not a troubler to call the one who is considering himself a troubler, you're a wimp. For example, what are you doing? You're spoiled. So each one has his own determination. So it's not really a set, it's not black and white. It's not black and white. There is grey. There is grey. This grey matter, people differ about it. But definitely, if you go into China, nobody will say you're not a traveler. But still people ask me, if I'm traveling by plane to China, am I a traveler or not? Yes, brother. Whether it's a plane, or a train, or a horse, you are a traveler. China is a traveler. And also to Scotland, and also to the areas of Birmingham. I can go down as well, as far as the Milton Keys. You're still a traveler. Luton, you're still a traveler. High Wycombe, you're still a traveler. Okay? Wallahu a'lam. Now, further.
regards to a lesson you talk about mannerism, there's a
Talking about what, sorry? Talking about
mannerism.
mannerism.
In terms of like how you act in terms of different people, there's a change. So like how you act to your child.
Do I, for example, change my manner in the way that it suits the person in front of me? Of course. I'm not going to be in the same manner with my kid like with you. If I do with you what I do with my kid, you think there's something wrong with me. True or not? If I start, cuddling you like I cuddle my child, what's wrong with this man? I thought he's a sheikh, he's teaching us. So I will be like a kid when I'm a kid. I will be like with you like a man. So it differs. So if the person who is a person, a'udhu billah, that if you could give him a smile, he might swear at you, then I will not really give him that smile. I will be firm on him. And that is why one of the bad manners, which is to be arrogant. But Abu Dujana, in the battle of Badr, he was marching from one side to another with arrogance. Prophet said, verily, Allah hates this way of marching, except in such circumstances. It's good to have it in front of the enemies, showing your power. He used to put his red bandits, and he puts his red bandits, Abu Dujana, forget about what's going to happen to you. So, the Prophet ﷺ, he and his companions, they set for us the examples to follow. Abu Bakr, who is Abu Bakr? The one who is the father of Asma, Aisha, the most closest person, beloved person to the Prophet ﷺ. And who could match Abu Bakr in terms of manners? Yet, in circumstances where he needs to be just like that, which is different from the manner, it is called good manners as well. Urwa ibn Mas'ud al-Thaqafi, when he was making the treaty of Hadeeth, Urwa, he was saying to the Prophet of Allah, it's better for you to make a deal with the people of Quraysh. Because if Quraysh now fights you, then you'll find those people who are, in Arabic we call it hawash, street guys, ragtag, nothing. They'll desert you, leave you on your own. Abu Bakr was there. And Abu Bakr is well known to be a person of manner and courage and also of charity before he embraced Islam. So he said to Urwa, and I'm going to say it in Arabic, Umsus badrallah. And for those who understand Arabic, it means lick the genitals of the private part of your cock, which is a la. Now this is rude. In Arabic, Umsus badrallah, lick the genitals of the private part of your lat. So Urwa Mas'ud, he was shocked. Abu Bakr, had it been that you have an upper hand in the favor over me, that means in the past he had lots of favors upon him. Abu Bakr, I would have returned your word. I would have really insulted you the same, and he couldn't really say it. Now the Prophet will never say to Abu Bakr, why are you rude? He didn't say that. This word, which is rudeness, is suitable to that situation. Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Man ta'azza bi'azai al-jahiliyyah, fa'a'idduhu bihani abih wa la tuknuh." One companion, he saw a man who is doing what the people were doing in Jahiliyyah, weeping, and when over, so not weeping, so wailing. Azai al-Jahiliyyah, paganism. So he said to him, "Lick the private part of your father." All the people said, "Why are you a companion? Can you say this? So why are you already astonishing me?" Because the Prophet ﷺ said, "He who does the same thing, he acts like the people of Jahiliyyah, then make him to bite on the private part of his father, and don't give that word a different, implicit word. Give it the word itself, which in Arabic we call it ayr. Don't even give that another word for it. Give that word, which is the rude one. Let him bite on it, because he's showing off pride, arrogant. Okay, you're arrogant, go on, because you come from where? From the private part of your father and the private part of your mother. So the places of urination, basically. Remember that. You can't be arrogant, can you? So you live your life and you're born from that. And while you are alive, you carry between you are the poo. And then when you die, you become what? A stinky corpse. So what are you arrogant for? So this is the arrogance from the Jahiliyyah. Allah Ta'ala a'lam. Na'am. Tafadhal akhi.
It was on the issue of travel. So for instance, say if like a woman was to travel to Birmingham to visit like a family member of hers or a friend to give condolences, and she was to spend the whole day.
A person who travels to a traveling distance, he will not be a person considered to be a resident, and he's not a traveler unless he decides to stay, meaning to stay as a resident. But a person who's a traveler and he starts with them stay for 1 day, 2 days for condolences, for them, he's still a traveler because he hasn't really settled. The person who is settled, he will do the same thing like the traveler. He will do something extra. The one who's settled, he might sleep the first night in a hotel, but later he will look for a cheap flat because hotels are very expensive. And maybe the first day we'll look for takeaways, but takeaways are very expensive. So the following day we'll start now buying what? Things to cook, which is cheaper. So that one is a resident, and this one is what? A traveler. Could be a traveler even 4, 6, 7 months, 1 year, 2 years. Because he's not really settled. He's saying tomorrow I'll travel, tomorrow I'll go, because he's not really doing anything which is making him like a business for 2 years or what. No, he's just saying, once I finish, I will leave. Now.
She'll still be required to have a mahram.
No, you're not required to have a mahram if you are in a traveling place. You are required to have a mahram while she's traveling. So if a woman, she wants to go to, let's say, a university in Saudi Arabia, which is boarding school, which is on her own, the mahram is needed just for me to take her there. And there she doesn't need a mahram, she needs safety. She needs safety. That means I need to make sure that she is safe. That's now.
What's the best course of action we could take to perfect our manners?
Could correct your manners?
Perfect.
The best action to correct your manners? The best way to perfect your manners, number one, the ibadah. This ibadah of yours, you have to perfect it. So the way when you pray solely to Allah. Number two, the best thing as well is to read in the biography of the Prophet of Allah, the biography of the Prophets, the biography of the companions, the biography of the good scholars. All these biography would help you to develop a character, personality which is evolved from those people. When you read, the more you read, then you will read. And of course, the third issue, the environment. Your environment is very effective on you. So if you are living in an environment where the words are all the time flying around, is if and the be and all of these letters, it's no good. So you got to go where dhikrullah, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, that's where the environment is. That would help. 3 things, remember them, inshallah, you'll be on top of your manners. Fadal.
Just regarding traveling again.
Traveling? We don't want traveling or troubling. Hang on a second. Have you got any troubling? No, okay. Go ahead, there's nobody. Last question.
The prayer of the traveller. What is the correct opinion or the most sound opinion?
What is the correct opinion
regarding the one? How long can a person shorten his prayers? Like for example,
I said how long the person has been in trouble. I said that as a concept for him. I said As long as the person is not settled, he's a traveler. I'll give you an example. Allah ibn Umar, he went to Azerbaijan. He stayed there and he wanted to go back. He's still shortening the prayer. Then his route, his path back to the Medina, blocked by snow. And the snow, you could tell, with no mountains of snow was a lot. You could tell that it's not going to take half an hour to melt, or 1 day to melt. It's going to take a long time. He stayed for 6 months, waiting for the snow to melt down, in order to find his path back to Medina. We have another narration, this is authentic, another narration which some of the scholars say is unauthentic. Anas radiallahu anhu, he was in Syria, Bilad Sham, for 2 years shortening the prayer. 2 years. So as long as you're not really intending to stay, I am not subtle. Not a person who is coming to study and he's now booked in a university, for example, to stay for 1 year. He's not a traveler. This is a resident because he's going to minimize his costs in terms of living standard, in terms of food. So he's settled. And there is no harm for the person to have more than one place of settlement. So if you have 4 wives, one in China, one in Morocco, one in the North Pole, and one in the South Pole. So when you travel in between them, you are a traveler. But when you are in the house of one of these wives, you are what? Resident. So you are a resident in China, resident in Morocco, resident in the North Pole, resident in the South Pole. But in between, when you travel, you are a traveler. Okay? So there is no harm to have one more than residential place. Wallahu ta'ala. Subhanakallah bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. By the way, this does not switch off or switch on.